Within our souls, we all possess a dream which lay dormant until intrigue strikes its match and sets the torch we carry ablaze, leading us down the path of the unknown towards our dreams. As coaches who are former high-performance athletes, our personal experiences have shown us that a coach, parent, or even a fellow athlete have the potential to either illuminate or extinguish the dreams of young athletes. Nothing is lost from the candle which lights another. We are here to share our stories and our passion to illuminate the champion within, empowering coaches, parents, and athletes to keep the flame of their dreams burning eternally. You are listening to Illuminating Champions with Michal and Ashley Anton. Welcome to another episode of Illuminating Champions. For our first-time listeners, my name is Ashley, and I'm here with my husband, Michal.
Hey, how are you guys?
So today's episode is all about the gifts that sports give you. It's called The Greatest Gift, and for us as gymnasts and gymnastics coaches, gymnastics has been a tremendous gift in our lives since childhood. So we're going to share with all of you our stories, which are quite unique, particularly Michal's, and how this has really made us who we are today. And we just want to celebrate this gift we have in our life because of sport in this time of holidays and gifting, and just celebrate the season. So what I want to start off with today is actually not myself. I would like Michal to start, because when I first met him, and I should mention this, we met coaching gymnastics. So that was a gift in both of our lives because, of course, we are now married. We also have a gymnastics center of our own.
We just celebrated our anniversary.
Yeah, we just celebrated our anniversary, actually. So that's a gift in itself, but we'll touch on that part later. But when I first met him, he told me how he got into gymnastics, and I was shocked because he was a amazing gymnast. He was a member of the Romanian national team.
That's good.
And I was expecting he just started gymnastics because he liked it or he got chosen out of school. I knew that this was a process in Romania at the time. But he was like, no, that was not my case. But I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about why he actually got started.
I was sick. Simple. Now, when I was like around 5 years old, I got very, very sick. The biggest problem was my kidneys, and I had like a toxic shock.
Toxic shock syndrome and sepsis.
Sepsis, yes. And in the beginning, they kind of misdiagnosed.
They misdiagnosed you initially.
They thought I had like an ear infection, like little kids have, because my head was blowing up, but it was not for that.
The head was swelling.
Yes, it was because the urine would get in the body, like I would not be able to go to the bathroom and pee, put it that way. And then one day, like I was very young, 5, I go to the bathroom by myself and I pee blood, and then I told my mother, and then from there I end up in a hospital. Anyway, short story. After I got out of the hospital, obviously I survived that somehow,
miraculously.
Yes. And I couldn't go to school, to regular school. To go in regular school in my country at the time, you start first grade at 6 years old in September, but you have to pass like a physical and medical test to go through school ahead of the school starting, and I couldn't. At 6 years old, I was like a vegetable. At 7 years old, I was like a salad. And I was like, I couldn't. And if I didn't make it, I was already 8 years old. If I didn't make it into regular school at that time physically, then they would have to put me in a special needs school type of, which was like year round, like a camp, like an orphanage kind of. You come home just when you are
like a boarding school.
Yeah, like a boarding school, stuff like that. And the doctor that was taking care of me told my mother to take me to the gym when I started gymnastics. I think he knew the coach, my first coach, or he knew about my first coach. And that's how I ended up over there with a note from the doctor asking the coach to put me in gymnastics. And then the rest of it was history because I become what I am today, and I have what I have today because of that chance to do gymnastics that was gifted to me at that time. And I can say that without gymnastics, yes, I will not be here today. I will not talk to you guys like this, and I will not be in this position. I will maybe be like some weak, sick, old man in a former communist country of Romania.
I think in your situation, I know it's very hard for you to talk about it, so you always glaze over it a little
It's
bit,
not that
but
hard. It's just like
you,
I don't want to scare people.
I know, he was gravely ill.
Yeah,
Like, they did not think he was going to make it. So, in your circumstance, I would say, from my perspective, that gymnastics really did save your life,
did
because it
did.
did provide you, besides the emotional strength, the physical strength that you could not obtain another way at that time.
But you see, that's the thing with sport done at the young age. Doesn't build just a strong physicality, it builds a strong mental. And they both connected. And how to say, like, for example, I start gymnastics coming out of a bad illness. But then before I turn 18, I have a very, very bad accident on high bar, an injury,
Mm-hmm.
like a brain trauma, by not listening to the coach. For the kids that listen over there and pay attention, like, listen to your coaches, listen to your parents, because when you don't listen, things like this happen. And my accident happened because I didn't listen. Although I was the best in the country at the time on the high bar, I still got hurt. But even that, like, I remember, like, the doctors being like, I don't know if he's gonna make it. I don't know if he's gonna be a normal person, even if he makes it, because I had like skull fractures, blood clots on the brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yes. And I didn't do surgery. And back in 1994, surgery was a little bit barbaric
It
for
was very
brain surgery.
risky.
Yes, and the way they did it was like not like today with lasers and computers, and they really crack your skull out and like fix it. And
Mm-hmm.
then they put a plaque back. Every time you go to the airport, you're gonna beep like a little terrorist. Like I didn't want that, and I didn't do surgery. And I had, I think, like 9 or 8 blood clots on my brain from the impact,
Mm.
and the skull fracture and every single damage. And not many people look at me in that moment and be like, oh, this guy is going to do gymnastics after this, and he's going to become a national champion again, and he's going to go to the national team again, and he's going to become a gymnastics coach. That was not something that they would look at me at the moment and think that I will be capable to do, because they didn't predict that my body will be able to recover normally. Even if I survive, I will not recover. I will be like um,
Handicap.
handicap, but mental handicap, right? And because of gymnastics, because of the, how to say, the strength of my body through gymnastics, and also my mind, strength of my mind,
Yeah,
mind
the
strength.
strength of your mind.
Yes, I was able to recover, because the whole time I remember, like, the second I stopped being a little bit conscious is, I remember my coach was very young and he was by my bed with my mother, my father, and they was all worried, and I can see them, and I'll tell the coach like, oh, don't worry, Monday, because the accident happened Saturday, and I think it was like Sunday or something. I don't remember the day, to be honest. Whatever day it was, I don't want to lie about it. And I remember looking at him and like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to be back in the gym. I'm going to do the same release in case I got hurt. Like, I was like very positive and very funny about it.
Mm.
And they would look at me like I'm crazy. But that positive attitude is what actually helped me heal and helped me carry that injury and go through it, because otherwise, if I didn't have that mental strength, although my body was strong, I will emotionally collapse. And if I, in that type of injury, if I emotionally collapse, then I will never come back for sure. But because I had that competitive mindset, I had that athlete, Olympian mindset and Olympian mentality, makes me like always, like every second of the day when I was awake, I would be like, okay, I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna recover. And I will tell that to myself.
Yeah, and it's amazing to think that, I mean, you started gymnastics because you were sick. So initially, you did not have that mindset yet. You just were fighting and knowing you wanted to live. But then getting older, you already experienced
Sorry to
gymnastics.
interrupt you a
Go
second
ahead.
here. I think that mindset was like, how to say it correctly. I didn't have the mindset of an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
but th- I was born with that. Like you see, like when you have talent, physical talent, also your mentality, your psychological
Mm-hmm.
part, it's also a gift and can be naturally in there. You just have to wake it up. And
Right.
most of us, the thing is this: everybody has that mental strength.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to learn how to use it. We're not born without, because we need it to survive. And
Right.
before all this technology and before all this modern life, we need to survive in wilderness. Then we have that. That's in us. We just don't utilize it.
Yeah,
It
it's
was the
not
same thing for me.
activated.
Like when I was 5 years old, yes, I fought a very severe illness, and I really fought it, like mentally. Like I want to survive. I didn't want to die. But that mentality was in me.
Mm-hmm.
That sickness, that, how to say it correctly, the idea of not making it, waking it up, and then like through sport, I just developed it to another level.
Right. But I mean, having that sport there in your life and it becoming something of great importance to you when you did have the head trauma and you again were in a situation where medically they didn't even know if you were going to survive because you had experienced gymnastics, it gave you something to fixate your mind on. Like, you still had goals you wanted to
Yeah,
accomplish. You wanted to go back in
the
the
goals,
gym.
yeah,
You had.
especially after the head accident, the goals was the ones that drove me.
Mhm.
Understand? Because like, yeah, I want to go to the Olympics in 1996. I want to be the youngest Olympian in Atlanta. Didn't happen, but that goal is what gave me the strength to not think about the severity of the injury and take that injury with, not lightly. But I
Well,
was aware of how
right.
bad I was, but I trust that I'm going to recover and trust I'm going to go back because I want to achieve that goal.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about if you just grew up a regular child and you were going to school and had friends and had family, like obviously your friends and family are great motivators for you to stay alive. But you having that extra push of, I also have things that are unfinished because of
Mm-hmm.
gymnastics, I think definitely helped push you
Yes,
to survival.
I'm going to be honest. Like the only reason I didn't give up in '94 after that accident, and I was already like emotionally down because that's another story. Like with the coaches, I switched gyms, and my former coach was bullying me, and I was upset, and I didn't know how to deal with those emotions. But the only reason I didn't give up was the goal of going to the '96 Olympics in Atlanta,
Hmm.
because like I will be in that bed in the hospital with 30 other people in the same room. And I look at them and I see those guys with like metal things in their head, like car accident, like everybody was a
Very
floor
bad.
just with
Yeah.
like brain trauma or brain cancers, neurologic, right?
Right.
It's called,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
neurologic floor. And there was some of them was, I watched them dying in front of me in the bed, and yeah, I could very easily be like, okay, I'm gonna be
Right.
next.
You're
I'm
next.
not gonna make it. I will go to sleep and I will hear this guy screaming out of pain, even though they was in a coma and in a narcotics, so not feel pain, but still feel pain. Like it was not very pleasant to be in that room with
No.
those. The only reason I didn't give up was my goal. I knew that that's what I want to do. I'm going to recover, and I believe in my ability to recover and my body ability to recover.
Hmm. I think that it's really great that you can share both of those things as a source of inspiration, and even for parents of children that they have some sort of medical issues, to know that the sport can really
Oh yeah, it
help
can.
you and you can't count someone out. I mean, we work with a bunch of children that they'll come in and they'll have been diagnosed with things like low muscle tone, at birth, or they were very premature, and their parents are always worried, of course, like, well,
You
I
was a
don't,
premature girl.
right? I don't know if they're really going to make it. I mean, for myself, my family was always astonished that I did gymnastics because I was born about 3 months early and I weighed a pound and 6 ounces at birth. So, same thing. They didn't think I initially was going to survive. And of course, I did. But then at about 8 years, 7.5, I started gymnastics. Um, and obviously, gymnastics has never left me, but my family couldn't get over the fact that I was born this teeny tiny little helpless thing and then became, a very strong person
And you're a
through
state champion,
gymnastics.
right?
Well, yes, that
Which is the
too.
biggest, it's the biggest state in America, right?
One
One of
of,
the biggest, right? One of the largest as
right.
population.
So, for parents
That,
that,
so once
go
again,
ahead.
that's like being a national champion in my country, Yugoslavia and Bulgaria together.
Maybe, yes. Um, but for parents that have young children that maybe they had a medical problem that, they have a low muscle tone, or they were premature and their development they're a little bit smaller, don't be afraid that they cannot excel in a sport. Put them in the sport. It will help them.
Once again,
Go
because
ahead.
even if they don't excel as professional
Right.
athletes, they're gonna excel as a person. They're gonna better their physicality and their mindset, which is
Mm-hmm.
gonna help them to be much healthier as growing up.
Right.
Sports are a very, very, very healthy activity for kids to do at a young age. Because, like, look,
Mentally.
mentally and physically.
Yeah.
No, Sparta was the strongest army, small army, but the strongest army. To nobody wants to face them at the time,
Mm.
back in time. But you see, they're little boys who start training at 2 years old, and they recognize that very fast at the time that the youngest they start doing physical activity, the stronger they will be as adults. In the society, no, it's as strong as her people. It's
Mm.
as healthy as her people. And three things in society are no health, education, and strong economy, right? But that strong economy comes from
Comes
people
out of
that
the
are
attitude.
like very strong physically and very healthy. Because with those things together, you can also build academic and intelligence that can bring the wealth to the country.
Mm.
And it's very important for the physical part to be done at a young age, and that's going to also build a mental part and going to help them to go through academics and become very well educated and have driven personality.
Ambition.
Yeah,
Be an
driven,
ambitious
yeah, being an
person.
ambitious person and build a society that's strong and wealth and safe.
Right. And I mean, for those kids, you think about, like you said, if when you were little, after surviving that illness, you were very physically handicapped for a
Yes.
while. You needed a wheelchair initially. And
Yeah.
and you always say like how you had really bad
Oh
scoliosis,
yes.
and you couldn't stand straight. And then I think about like me, I was very, very small, but I never thought about it, and I never cared if even in school if somebody was picking on me because I was little. I didn't care because I was like, well, I'm a gymnast. I'm good. I'm small. I can flip around. I'm strong. And for you,
And you have
it
an
gave
ability
you,
that
right, that they
nobody else
didn't
can do it.
have.
Yeah.
And for you, it built your strength. It allowed you to surpass like your physical problems at the
Yeah, but
time,
you
and
see,
then it
like the
made you feel
difference is like
strong.
you grew up in America where, yeah, someone gonna look at you and call you, I don't know, maybe the worst thing they're gonna call you was a midget.
Yeah.
But for me, I grew up in a place where they will physically beat me up
Right.
and make fun of
Yes,
me at
that's
the same time
different.
and insult me verbally at the same time. And yes, sport helped me because at one point, like I could stand up for myself. Like I could feel comfortable and confident to not have people walking all over me, you know. And that didn't turn me into a criminal. That turned me into a good man at the end of the day because I learned that no, I'm strong enough
To stand your
to
ground.
stand my ground, and I don't need to make someone else feel less just because I can.
Right.
Because I was in that situation and I learned how hard I come out of it.
Yeah.
That's why when people watch those professional athletes, especially like in fighting sports like boxing, MMA, kickboxing, the ones that are at the top of the game, they never very, how to say it correctly, they are aggressive because they do an aggressive sport, but they're not gonna come into a restaurant and just start beating people up because they can.
Mm-hmm.
They have that type of confidence, and they build that confidence through hard work, to suffering, right? They, as young kids, maybe they lost fights and they know how is to be beat up. They know how is to lose. They know how is to not be the strongest. And now they are the strongest, and they have that very humble.
Right.
They hold that strength very humble.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so important to be able to stand up for yourself and learn to appreciate all of those factors that you just mentioned. And I mean, we see it in our own students. They always come in and they'll brag about how well they do in their physical tests, like in gym class and things. And they take pride in discovering the fact that they're stronger than the average child. And that sounds like not that important, but growing up, it's very, very, very important to know that you're strong and know that, you do have a unique ability and you can stand up for yourself and you have things that make you
And you can
special.
achieve
Right.
goals.
And you
You
can
can be,
achieve goals.
yeah, you can. You're not gonna be afraid to put yourself a big goal and say, I want to become this. Not just in sport. You, no, you do sports and then you look at it. You are like, I want to be the best surgeon in the world. I want to be the best lawyer in the world. I want to be the biggest CEO in the world. I want to be the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You can put those goals and you can follow them because you're going to be able to work hard. You're going to be able to have that determination that's not going to let you give up just because it's a little harder, it's a little bit
Right.
complicated. Life is, let's be honest, life is not easy. With being sick, with being healthy, with being wealthy, with being poor, life is always hard.
Mm-hmm.
No, a poor person is going to look at a very wealthy person and be like, oh my gosh, their life is so easy. And maybe if you go in that, like a invisible board in their house in the private moment, you're going to see how much they suffer,
Mm-hmm.
although they have all that wealth, or how hard it is, how stressful it is for them to have the wealth. And then the very poor person goes home and have a family that loves them and kids that
Yeah.
respect them, and they're, although they don't have the wealth, they have the life
They have other
enjoyment.
type of
Yes,
wealth in
someone
life.
who's very strong and very big, looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. You think like, oh, look at him, he's so strong. He's like, and then he goes home and he suffer emotionally because of whatever problem he has. And
Mm-hmm.
someone who is like looking like he's not the athletic one, he's the one that lives a life that's full of happiness and
Mm-hmm.
parties, and life is like that.
Well, all those things that you're talking about are also a person's mindset. So I think sports really set you up. It gives you the best position you can have if it's done correctly, to have a great mindset that allows you to be driven. I mean, I and you, neither of us learned how to set a goal in school as much as we did in sport. And
No,
because that goal, no matter how well I wanted to do in school, it didn't mean as much to me as wanting to do well in gymnastics did. And I was a good student and I did care about doing well in school, but the sport is different. I think it's also because it's a full body
it's
it,
more demanding.
it's more demanding and it's a full body experience. It's not just a mental experience where you're sitting at a desk and memorizing something and aiming to challenge your mind. It's different because it has that mind body connection, and you have to envision your goal. You have to get your mind to tell your body how to achieve the goal. Your body has to respond and carry out the action, and it's very, very intimate, and it becomes very important to you. They always say like live, eat, sleep, breathe gymnastics. That's a real thing because you do feel like that when you're going through the sport, especially competitively, no matter whatever.
Especially if you want to be an elite gymnast,
Right.
that's a
It's
different ball game.
always in the back of your mind, no matter what else you're doing. Not to say that you can't focus on other things, but when you sit down and you have quiet time, that's what you start thinking about, are those goals. And I mean, for myself, I think that's one of the greatest gifts that gymnastics gave me, was to activate my ambition. I am innately ambitious. Like you were saying, you have certain personality traits that you're born with. I was born very determined, very ambitious. I liked a challenge. I wanted to go through it. I wasn't afraid of challenges. I ran towards them. That's just how I am. But if I didn't have gymnastics, I never would have fully activated that, because I didn't know that about myself until I went in the gym and I watched somebody do something that I didn't know how to do yet. And I was like, I want to do
Once
that.
again, because you see, like
Yeah.
you didn't have to till you
Right. That's
maybe
what I
got
mean.
older and you was like 25, 26 years old and you go to get a job and then like you didn't get a job because you was not good enough and now you have to start struggling emotionally
Yeah.
with yourself, right? And look in the mirror and try to pick yourself up and be like, no, I'm going to go back. I'm going to try
Right.
harder and I'm going to get the job. Where in gymnastics at 7 years old, like today, like our level twos are 5 years old.
Yeah.
Those girls go in competition and have the same emotion of succeed or failing
Yeah.
as an adult at 30
Yes.
years old or 40 years old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's 5. Then by the time she's 10, she knows how to deal with those emotions pretty good. By the time she's 20, she's going to be like the world champion in boxing, but in emotional behavior, you know, like she's going to have a mental that's unbreakable.
Yeah. No, it makes a gigantic difference, because you just get used to always having a challenge becomes normal, and it becomes something that's not a stressor in your life, which is most adult people who never experience the challenges through sports. When they are faced with a challenge, that becomes something that can literally destroy them. And going through sports and going through gymnastics in particular, which is a constant challenge, and the challenge never stops, because the skill learning also never stops. And you're aware of that it's
And
constant.
the
You can,
execution
yeah,
doesn't start. Like
right.
you can do a trick correct at 5 years old, you do a cartwheel correct, then you have to split your legs more, point your toes more, stretch
Yes,
your legs more. Like
it's constant
even if you
improvement.
get a trick, you have to fix it. There's so many things to make
Yeah.
it almost perfect, and you always try to achieve that perfection. That
Yeah,
the
constant
learning
demand.
process and the yes, the learning process and the improvement process never stop.
Yeah. So you're used with this notion of like, I need to get better, I need to get better, I need to get better. And then it's not stressful. Whereas if somebody never encountered that until their adult life, going into the workforce, that's probably extremely stressful. I can't imagine living like that, having grown up the way that I did with gymnastics. That would make me panic. And I think that's why a lot of adults, they do, because you're just not used to that. Whereas if you grew up with it as a child, it becomes something normal, and you can manage it so much better. I mean, we've talked about how it helps scholastically as well. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes. I remember by the time I got to high school and the workload was very heavy, I never struggled with it, because I was able to sequentially think about what needs to get done and stay calm and be like, okay, I'm going to tackle this and then this and then this, and I have this period of time to do all of that, and I was fine. Whereas I had friends that they didn't do sports, or they did sports a lot, with a much lesser commitment than gymnastics takes, and they wouldn't get their work done, and they'd be stressed out about it, and they wouldn't do so well in school, just because of the stress of having to take tests and get hours of homework done, and they had the time to do it, but their mentality and the way that they were dealing with that stress was overwhelming to them. So I think that's another gift, is that notion of, I can do this, I can surpass this challenge, I can manage my time, I can, you know, not be afraid about even just failing or not doing well in school. I was never afraid to take a test, because gymnastics is a constant test of your ability. And then, of course, competing, that's always a test. So I was used to that. Okay, now it's a competition. My math test is the same thing. It's not different in my mind. I know what I need to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I don't have to worry about messing up, just like I don't need to worry about falling off the beam in the middle of my routine. So that's another great gift, I would say, that gymnastics provided me with. And then in addition to that, of course, it's like what experiences you have with your teammates, and go having this bond that you meet other people you can connect with. And that's varies in importance depending on personality type, but for some children that's something that's very important to them. They need that connection with someone else that can relate to
And they
them.
need to
And
learn through that connection how to respect people that are more successful than you.
yes,
They are better than you. They work harder than you. They are more talented naturally than you. And you can't hate them for that. You have to respect them. And through sports, you learn that humbleness. And
yes,
you learn also, like, if you are the best, you have to be humble. Understand? Because then the sports humbles you very fast, because you're not going to be the best forever. Someone else is going to take it from you. Like this competition, you can be in first place, but next competition, someone else can take that first place from you, and
right,
someone else can take the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10, and you are in the 11. And
yeah.
now you're not the best. And then you have to learn to be humble in the moment of success and be humble in the moment of insuccess.
Yeah, and I mean it's a really a challenging dynamic to learn, but it's so vital and it's so beneficial growing up through that, because you watch, like he just mentioned, our youngest kids compete at 5. So they're learning what that means right now to win and have a placement or not win that day. And it's interesting to watch them learn this concept and then learn how to interact with one another. And even within older kids than that, it's very important that they learn that, because it's it's always keeping you grounded. If you're on first place, you're very excited internally, but then because you have a teammate that maybe they didn't do as well as you, and you care about them, you you're proud of yourself and you're excited, but it's kind of like, I don't want to say you have to keep it all inside, but you do have that humbleness to then look at the other person and still want to uplift them
Yes.
and be like, you did a great job today too, and you want them to feel good about themselves. You're not going to become
And arrogant.
an arrogant, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. You're not going to become an arrogant person, like I'm the best and no one else is as good as me, because on the next event or the next competition, maybe you're not getting anything at all,
And the one
and
who
they
fall three
right
times, she's going to do her
have a
routine
good
and
day
beat
that
you.
day and beat you. So it does keep you very, very humble. As long as you promote that as a parent and as a coach, you can build very humble but ambitious people in the world. Even the child that's struggling, little kids, a lot of times they don't want there to be a winner, because it's painful when it's not them.
Because they are
And
afraid to not be the winner.
right. So they don't want to know who won. And I think it's so important that they do know who wins. I mean, we had a little one recently be like, well, I don't want to know. We time them when they sprint. Like, well, I don't want to know who sprinted faster today, because it's always this person that runs the fastest. And I said to them, like, yes, she continually has ran the fastest, but look how close you're getting to her. And if you didn't have her there, you wouldn't want to beat her. She's giving you somebody to
And
want
you'll
to
not improve your
surpass. You
time.
wouldn't improve your own time, because it wouldn't be so meaningful for you to do that. And then they're like, oh, yeah, actually. And then they got excited about it and forgot this
But
first thought
that's
that they
that's one
had.
thing,
But
one
go
big
ahead.
gift that sports give
Yep.
young kids is that strength to try to achieve greatness. Like, right, you want to
Right.
be the best, you want to win the competition, but don't be afraid to not.
Yeah.
Because that's, even for adults, that's the first step of in success for an adult, is the fear of failure.
Yes.
Right? They don't put a big goal in their head. I don't want to get this job, because if I don't get it, I don't want to have this position as a CEO, because if I don't do my job good, I lose the job, and then what? Go and try to do that job very good. You know. Then if you have that competitive mindset from a young age as an athlete, then you're not going to be afraid of failing at something or falling at something or doing it wrong, because you're going to focus on the how to do this thing correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because during a competition, you cannot think about falling or doing things wrongfully, because then you're going to do them wrong. And that's why I said, like in past episodes, when I said, like, competing, it's a skill. Like everything else in life, it's a skill. You have to learn how to compete because it's a mindset skill. It's a psychological skill.
Mm-hmm.
No, because when you get to that competition day, your physical skill is already there, academic or athletic. You train that, right? But you don't perform well under the stress of competition because mentally you don't know how to focus on what to focus on in that moment. You let the stress control you. And then someone who learns how to compete at a young age is going to have that skill of competing that's going to carry them in life through everything from school to jobs to businesses, whatever they want to do.
Right.
That's why one of the most successful people in the world, they are very skilled competitors. They like to compete. They strive under pressure. They look at Elon Musk. When everybody told him he's not going to sell one Tesla, the guy is the richest man in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's how it is because he likes competition. He learns how to compete at a young age.
Right. And I mean, that notion that you can be limitless, like the only limits you have are the ones you place upon yourself. That's a powerful thing for a child to learn. And once they discover that, it unlocks so many doors
That's in America.
in
Sorry, I have
life.
to say that works in America.
Well, I mean, just it goes back to not fearing failure. And you see it in, go
Because
ahead.
when I grew up, when I was a little kid, if they put a limit on me, they put it.
Okay, yes, this is a societal difference. It's true.
But in American society, that's a true statement. The
Mm-hmm.
only limit you have is yourself. You limited yourself. You can come from the poorest family, for the most uneducated family, for the most broken family, and you can become the president of the United States
Mm-hmm.
if you have the right mentality, if you have the right determination, if you have the right mindset. You know?
Right. And I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget, like, saying what you're saying. A lot of times we have the tendency in America to tell children, you could be whatever you want, because it's true what he just said. You can. But I don't think kids really believe that until they encounter that feeling that you get within sports of, oh, I can be this
Look,
champion that I want to be.
I'm
I
gonna add something
can
here because I said it in the
accomplish
past.
this.
I like a lot about the American people, that um, personality. Like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's a strong statement, and that comes from every American person that I met since I came to America. Every
Yeah,
single
it's
time, like, oh,
ingrained
we
in
can do
us.
this. It's the country statement, kind of. Like America is like that. Like, we can do this. We are American. We can do it. But people sometimes forget to explain the young kids and even for themselves, like, yeah, you can do this if you do this. That can do comes with the work,
Right.
comes with the sacrifice. If you make that sacrifice, if you do that work, you can achieve it. And that's what, like, I think the time goes by and people got comfortable. They forget to explain the young generation and the kids to, you can do this, but this is the work that you have to do for it.
Right. And you
And
can't
that,
feel the
yes.
work.
And in sports, you feel it very fast because you can go there and tell your daughter or your son, like, oh, you can be a state champion, but forget to explain them that, it's hard work. It takes this and this and this and this. And then they say, like, yeah, I can be a state champion. I want to be a state champion. Then they don't do the work correctly. They don't have that determination correct. They don't make the sacrifice correct. And then they come in the last place and then they look at themselves and say, you know what? I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Now you turn it to I can't. And that I can't becomes psychologically engraved in their heart and in their
Mm-hmm.
mind. That's why it's very important to give them the right tools.
Yes. And it's important, like, from the moment that you see their mind wandering. I mean, a lot of times children who don't get a skill the fastest will look at somebody else and have the same reaction, that they're not good enough. Or if you challenge them as a coach, like he said to our little ones the other day, like, I want you by the end of the season to all be able to get a perfect 10, at least one. And they get very uncomfortable. And I just looked at them and said to them, like, someone can get a 10, right? Then why can't that someone be you?
If you work hard and you
That,
do your job and
and
you
they
pay
thought
attention
about
and
it
you
and they're
try
like, well,
hard.
I guess it could be. But I think you need to put those thoughts in their head. I mean, they're going to have them on their own. I remember having them myself. I remember asking my mom, well, Do you
Once
think
again,
I
not
go
just put
ahead?
the thoughts in there because you don't want to just put it. You want to challenge the
That's what I
thoughts.
mean, like challenge their thinking. And if they're not doing it themselves in particular, but most of the time they will, because they'll watch something that stimulates the thought while being in the sport. You know, one of them said to me the other day, like, about, well, could you really go to the Olympics? Well, of course you can. You watch people do it, right? Then yes,
Why not
it's
you?
possible to do it if you put the work in. And of course, yes, of course, there's other factors such as talent and circumstances, and just the luck of life with not getting sick or injured sometimes,
Family,
or
the
family
environment.
problems. But yeah, it's possible. And we do have this mentality in America because it is a country that is filled with possibilities. I mean, that's the whole notion of the American dream, that anything that you
And you
want to be
can.
possible can be
You
possible
guys prove
with
it to
the
the
work.
world. You can. You send the first man on the moon, right? You make the nuclear bomb. You make everything like, no, you was the first one to build those big buildings in Manhattan. Like,
Skyscrapers, yep.
yes, like you can.
Right.
Like you prove to the world that you can. You
So,
stop Hitler, you can, right? Europe crumbled under Hitler invasion, right? During the World War II. You stop him without America, and you said it when you decide to go at war in 1944 to go after the Germans. You said we can't stop them, and you stop them. You always like that, and that's why I said, like, it's engraved in the American mentality. I can, you can.
yeah.
But people nowadays, they forget to explain the tools for you can or I
hmm
can.
It's important. I mean, for me, that was a huge gift in my life. No,
One second,
learning
because see, when
that.
the guy flew to the moon and they say, oh, we can't do that before the Russians, the Soviet at the time,
Yes.
right? They didn't just stay at NASA on the chair like this. It's like, okay, let's see if it's happening. Now, those guys start working day and night, study, build, do this, do that, to try to make that thing happen before the Soviets. And they did it. But they
Right.
did it through hard work. They did it through sacrifices. They did it through determination. They didn't just sit there and, oh, we can, and happen magically. It doesn't happen. Nothing magically happen like that, like boom.
Well, and I think sports gives you this idea of that you can accomplish what is seemingly impossible, which is a gigantic notion to have,
Oh, yes.
especially growing up and then being an adult, to be the first to develop something. If you're going to invent something or a new technology or even a new procedure of doing
No, I don't want to
something.
be wrong, but I
Go
think
ahead.
Hussein Bolt, certain trap, as the first one to run under 10 seconds, or I think so, and 100 meter, right? That was impossible years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like 20 years ago, if you tell someone like they will run like under 10 seconds, they'll be like, what? The guy said, I can. But he did what he had to do to make that I can possible. And that's why sports are so good for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because in every sport, if you look at all the Olympic champion, world champion, European champion, Asiatic, like Asia, how you call it in English?
I don't know,
Asia
the
region
Asian region.
champion, like Africa champion, like South American champions, like they all have that one thing when they beat history. They make something that nobody believe it.
Right.
You look at the biggest champions in the world, and they all have a story like that behind it. And it's like when there was a young kid, nobody look at them like, oh, this guy's gonna be an Olympic champion or a world record, Olympic record. No, I talked in the past about Carl Lewis. That's an athlete that I like a lot from America. Right? Nobody believed that guy is going to be Olympic champion. He believed, and he worked hard. He did what had to be done in order for him to become Olympic champion, and he proved everybody how good he is and capable he is. And that's the mentality that sports build if they done correctly.
And also, like, when you're a child and you have this gigantic dream of that's unreachable for millions of people, but you decide to go for it anyway, and you have no idea. People always say all the time, well, you don't have a crystal ball, so how do you know it's going to
I
turn
don't
out
need
that
one.
way? You don't. But to go for it anyway, for the love of it and the thrill of it and the chance that it could happen, that's a huge responsibility, and it's a very honorable notion, because most adults are not going to go after something that they really strive for just because they're not 100% certain that it's going to happen. And for a child to experience
Nobody,
that,
no world champion really like, okay, you believe in yourself going in competition, I can win. But you have at least 0.01% doubt because you go against someone else that's as good as you.
right?
Then the possibility of you winning is not 100%, never.
Yeah,
And that's with everything in life. But learning how to compete and desire to be the best doesn't let you think about that 0.1 chance to not win. Makes you think about, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be the best. I'm going to
right.
win.
And that's even in the short term, but I mean, even looking at it long term, because if a child starts gymnastics at 5 and she wants to go to she walked through the door saying, I want to go to the Olympics, that's not going to happen for another 11 years or more. That's a huge thing to try to foresee, that they don't know they're too young to know the path and understand what it really takes anyway. And they're just going into it with this aspiration that's fueling every decision that they make. And I think that that's so powerful, because as an adult, you carry that. You can set a huge goal and say, 5 years from now, I want to build this sort of business, or I want to, whatever your personal goals are. And then you're going to go for them. And then you're going to have learned, like you say, to have developed a plan, because you've already experienced that, and understand that it's going to take work, understand that there's going to be ups and downs, and it's not always going to go the way that you want, but you go back to the drawing board and keep going until you get to where you want to be.
But that's why it's important to not limit the little kids for dreaming and imagining a
Right.
goal, a big goal, and
Yeah.
something that they want to achieve. Because then you limit their mind to just a small circle. You know what I mean? And they're like, I'll never be bigger than this circle. I'm not going to get out of this circle ever because this is what it's my ability. I'm going to give you an example that this is not sport, but related to school, right? I grew up in a socialist communist country back in time, and we didn't have passports. We didn't travel out the country, like very rare. Like if you was an athlete and you go to a competition, they will still send the Secret Service with you to make sure that you come back home. And in the 5th grade, I think I started learning English and French as foreign languages in school. I was in a very good school because I was a gymnast. And you see, another gift from gymnastics. And I was bad at it. I didn't study. I'm going to be honest, because I was focused on gymnastics. And my father, as uneducated my father was, he had 8 grades. My father grew up after the World War II. And at 12 years old, my father would build the
Railroads. He was working on the railroad.
Then he didn't finish more than 8 grades. And besides, at the time, like my country was occupied by Russia, and it was a different environment in my country. But my father, I remember, like I come home one time, and he looked at my grades. We have like a book with the grades from school. You bring it home for the parents to sign it, and I bring it, and he looked at my English and French. He's like, son, why you don't study? And you're smart. You're very smart. You're very intelligent. Why you don't study that? And I look at him, and I was like, as a little boy, I said, Dad, I will never use English and French. He's like, what do you mean? Like, why? I said, Dad, I live in Romania. I'm like, I couldn't imagine, because of the society, what I'm trying to say.
Right.
See, like
you
I was
couldn't
limited.
travel somewhere to use
I couldn't
that.
imagine myself living in a place where I'm going to use French and English. For me, those 2 languages was useless, because in my country, we speak Romanian. I don't need that. That for me didn't matter. Understand? And then years after, I got to Cirque du Soleil, and I called my father from Montreal in Canada. Like I think the first week I was there, and I say, Dad, you were so right. Now I was 28 years old. I said, you were so right when you told me then to learn English and French. Although Cirque du Soleil will pay for me a translator, I had a person that stays with me like 12 hours a day to translate for me. And I was so embarrassed because I couldn't speak the language. I couldn't speak French. I couldn't speak English. I couldn't communicate without the help of my translator, and that was very, very embarrassed. And I remember calling my father and be like, I wish I listened to you when I was in fifth grade and learned, but I didn't, because I, even then, I didn't understand exactly why I didn't. Now living in America for so long, I know why I did it, because I couldn't imagine myself need it and use it, because I couldn't see myself getting out of that small circle. Understand? Because I was limited in thinking. I was limited in dreaming and having goals and having ideas that, oh, I can be this in life. I can, for me, it was I can be this Olympic champion in gymnastics. And that was the limit.
Does it?
That was the cap. If I didn't achieve it, I would be a nobody. Where in America, you have no limits. Then don't put limits on the kids.
Yeah.
Feed them at a young age. Teach them to make big dreams, big desires. Wanna achieve the most unachievable idea, and guide them towards, show them the tools to achieve that. As crazy as that idea is.
Right. They're going to
That little
learn.
5 years old girl wants to go to the Olympics, and you see she has that potential that she needs, because she needs that natural talent a little bit. Then yes, tell her like, you could do this, but this is what takes from you to do it, and guide her and teach her how to grow with the idea. Understand? Because at the 5 years old, obviously she's not going to train twice a day, 8 hours. You're not going to do triple flips with her, but her handstand is going to be like a triple flip. Her 2 hours and a half practice is going to feel like 8 hours. Teach her how to go through that. Teach her how to be determined to push through that practice. Teach her how to start focusing and listening and desire to be the best and desire to do things correct. You know, help her grow with her dream.
Right. Exactly. And I think all of these things that were talked about are such gifts personally and individually, but then just on a wider note for us, we always say having gone through gymnastics and now coaching, that's a gift in itself. I mean, neither of us could really imagine our life would be as full or complete without that, because you get to interact with children and you get to experience all of these gifts that we just mentioned with them. And that's a magical and profound thing, to have this role in someone else's life, especially a young child. So, gymnastics gave us both that gift that we can now pass on to others and watch them obtain all of these inner strengths, and go through this process of learning that they can accomplish what they want. They can surpass a challenge. They can be brave when they feel afraid. They can, you know, go on in life and carry all of these things that they've learned through their sport and apply them as an adult and be a successful person and a humble person and somebody who's able to do exactly what Michal said, be in a situation where maybe somebody else is competing for the same thing as them, but they can value the other person's accomplishment and respect them and not become jealous towards them, and also respect themselves enough to be proud of their effort and just continue working at what they want. Those are all things now as coaches that are our gifts and our rewards that we get to watch every single day. Children learn, and I can't even accurately express it, because it's just it's so
So see,
deep and so
another
profound in a
gift,
coach's life.
gymnastics, right? I have to say something now, because I talk about like being young and all that. But in 2009, at the same time of year that we do this episode today, I was left homeless in America
Mm-hmm.
with no work, no working visa, no house. I was asked to leave the house. It was right around the same time Christmas,
Yeah.
and I have to sleep in her car. And before even I got to that point, I was already in a very dark place, very dark place. You know, and many times, like obviously, as strong as I am, people look at me when I walk at competition, like, look at this guy, he's so tough, he's so strong, he's so flashy. My mind started playing games with me. And the only reason I didn't give up was because gymnastics. And I want to coach gymnastics, and my dream of making an Olympic champion now, because I was a coach. and my dream to prove that gymnastics can be done differently.
Mm-hmm.
All that, and she's witness to that. She actually like saw me like sleeping in the backseat. uh, that's why I pushed through. That's why I didn't give up, you know. And she can tell you that too. I asked one time, what's the highest bridge in Manhattan? Whatever I said, I didn't know Manhattan at the time. I said New York, you know. And you can figure out why I asked that. Understand? But gymnastics is what gave me the purpose to not let myself down.
Mm-hmm.
Understand? And that's a big gift.
Yes, it is. It does give you purpose. I mean, obviously, we wake up every day and we still have that same mindset of what goals do I want to accomplish, 5, 10 years down the road, but what do I want to accomplish today? And what's my purpose? And what do I value in my life? And gymnastics brought all of that to both of us.
Oh yeah.
And it's very special for us to share that with children because we know that they're going to carry these same types of emotions that we now have as adult people and can't imagine our lives without. So that's why we wanted to do this episode today, because gymnastics really, it has been a gift in both of our lives, more so than we probably accurately expressed right
Yeah.
now, because
And
it's
can be a
hard to,
gift for many young children, girls and boys, if it's done correctly and if it's guided correctly.
Yes.
And can be a good gift without them becoming Olympic champions at the Olympic Games. They
Right.
can become Olympic champions in life, can give them that gift of strong mind and physicality to go through life without breaking.
Yes. That's probably the one of the largest gifts it gives you, is learning how resilient that you are.
And
And
that's a good gift, and that's a strong skill to have too. No,
it's
not
like a
skills.
power.
Yes, strong power to know that you're that strong.
Mm-hmm.
When you learn your strength, especially the mental strength, the physical strength is gonna carry. But when you learn your mental strength, you become a strong person,
Yes. You
because then you have no limits. Then you don't put limits in yourself because you know you can achieve almost everything.
right. So I think that's probably the strongest gift that you're going to get, is that mental um, discovering that mental strength that
Yeah.
you can go through anything you want. So that's how I want to tie off today, and then leaving everybody with some tips for creating luminous moments, for coaches. Challenge the minds of your athletes to dream big. Allow them to learn how to set big goals and work towards them, and help them learn how to know what steps they need to take to get there, and hold them accountable. Make them verbalize what it is that they want and how they're going to get there. Make them verbalize what they didn't do when it doesn't come out the right way, and how they're going to make a transformative action
And what
to,
takes for them to make that
right, to
transformation to
to do
achieve the
better
goal?
next time. um, and then on the other half of that, for parents, do the same thing. Show your child within their sport who's the Olympic champion at that moment, and let them become inspired by that person, to also discover that this is what's possible for me, and I can become an
One
even
second.
greater
Don't
version of
show them
that.
just the shine of that person,
Yeah.
because that's a big mistake that we do that a lot in society, not just with little kids, even the adults. They look at someone very successful, but they look just at the shine of success.
Yes.
They don't see
The struggle
the
behind.
struggle behind that success, and they don't learn about that. And then it's very easy to become depressed when you don't become successful so fast and so big.
Right.
You know.
And it's easy to assume that it was easy for that person, and then you're just not, you don't have it. So I think it's very important for them to learn the stories of other athletes that are, you know, renowned athletes, because they do all have some sort of struggle in their life. And then it makes your child feel like, you know what, if this person achieved this great thing,
One
but they
second, I have
went
to say
through a
something here.
struggle,
I'm not
I
going to say
can.
names because I want
Go
to
ahead.
keep things private. I don't want to brag, but in America, I had a chance to meet someone very wealthy, very famous, let's say an actor. And watching him as an actor, I thought about how lucky this guy is, right? He's an actor, he has all this fame, he's so rich, he's so all known everywhere. And then when I had a chance to personally meet him, and he told me part of his life story behind the success, actually at the same moment with the success story, then I realized, I'm like, wow, that man really want to be successful. When someone tells you, I sold my vacuum, right?
I sold my vacuum cleaner, yeah.
Cleaner, and I had $200 in the bank account. And then you see them, this multi-millionaire superstar, and they didn't give up in that moment. And after that moment, they didn't give up. They
had their
become
breakthrough.
so successful, That's when you learn that in life, you shouldn't give up ever if you have a dream and if you have a goal and you want it really. Because I look at him and I'm like, if he give up in that moment, the world never know him. The world never knew his story. His movie will not be the biggest movie in the history of Hollywood because he gave up. But he didn't. And he was not an athlete, but he had that mentality. He had the mental of like, I'm going to be successful.
Right.
And that's why he's successful. And a lot of times, we let our kids to look at someone successful, but they see that just the success. And then if they don't achieve it, they think they are not good, but they don't see what they have to change in order for them to become successful. And they don't see that the person that today is successful years ago struggled.
Right.
Or before becoming successful, they almost didn't make it. But in the moment when they almost didn't make it, they make one more step. And that step was the step of success. The door opened and they got into the light. And that's how life is.
Yeah, it is.
Did I explain correct?
You did. I like the phrase you said, the step of success.
Yeah. But it's a step of success. Because it's the step of failure, which is backwards. You stop and you go back because you got afraid of the door in front of you. And it's the step of success. You step and you open the door and the light is there. You get in the spotlight.
Yeah, it's true. And then, we always leave tips for athletes too. And for athletes, it's going to be to really take time every day to reflect not only upon how you did at practice and what you want to achieve, but to really feel the gift of your sport on a deeper level. Why is it important to you? One of my little kids the other day asked, well, why do we do gymnastics and why do we go to competitions? Because apparently now this is on her mind, like, why am I doing this? And I said, I think you can answer that question by yourself. Why are you doing it? And then she thought a little bit and she's, well, I love it. And well, why do you love it? What feeling does it give you? And have that conversation with yourself. What is making me be drawn to this sport? Why do I love it so much? Why do I feel like I have to keep doing it?
I tell my girls in the gym all the time, they do gymnastics, and I tell them, gymnastics, it's yours. It's not mine, it's not mommy, it's not dad, it's not the cat, it's not Miss Ashley. It's yours, and it's yours only. If you do a sport, if you do an activity, art activity, academic activity, it's nobody else than yours. Then you have to know why you are doing that. You have to find inside your heart, inside your mind, why. Why am I doing this? What's the reason? And you do it for you. You don't do it for anybody else. The first person you have to please, it's you. If that activity pleases you, the results of that activity please you, everybody else who loves you, from mommy to daddy to the coaches to the teacher, they're going to be happy for you because they want to see you successful.
Exactly.
But you do it for yourself. You don't do it for anybody else.
Right. So just really feel those gifts every single day, especially in moments when you're struggling and you are feeling down. Those are things that you need to remember that will propel you forward again and give you that purpose to continue going and ground you, to remind yourself like your value and what it is that you want to achieve and that you have the power to do it. So we want to thank everybody so much who are following us through this podcast journey and beyond
almost a
that we
year.
are taking. We apologize. Last week we missed the episode because I had no voice. I still a little bit groggy, but we'll be back on weekly. And we want to thank everybody for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Illuminating Champions. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for our next episode.